Hello, I'm John David Ebert, and welcome to Understanding Contemporary Art. In this and the next class to follow, we'll be looking at the artwork of Christian Boltanski. Now, with Boltanski, we're moving from Italian art to French art, and in a way, in having gone through all the German art that we went through, and now we've just gone through the Italian art and seen the influences on Janis Kounellis, we've also done a sort of archaeology of the influences on Christian Boltanski, because as he himself has said, his influences come from German art and arte povera, and he has said that the French did not understand contemporary art. They, for the first time, have really found themselves to be behind an artistic development, and so Paris has not been the center of contemporary art, or even a center. It has not been a place where contemporary art has flourished. It is certainly the place for the avant-garde of philosophy, which did flourish in exactly the epoch ascribed to contemporary art elsewhere. But as far as contemporary art goes, it's just not, it didn't happen in Paris. But with Christian Boltanski, contemporary art has indeed produced one of contemporary art's greatest artists. Boltanski is one of my absolute favorites. And so I want to get right into his work. He was born in 1944, so he's still living now and he's still doing work. This is a photograph of him. Looks like a rather genial fellow, which is interesting because his work is very chiliastic. It's very gloomy, brooding, dark, introverted work, as we'll see here, and it is a work that is absolutely an oeuvre that is obsessed with the cult of the ancestral dead. And with Boltanski, I think what we'll see here, and in this video, to introduce him, I just want to look at two of his works, but I want to spend some time on them, looking at them in some detail, to give a sense of the flavor of what he's up to. What we'll see with him is that what he does have in common with Janis Kounellis, both artists have in common a concern with the past. Kounellis has a concern with space and place. He's an artist of space who is concerned with reconstructing memory in the Mediterranean. Whereas Christian Boltanski is an artist who is concerned with reconnecting us with the cult of the dead ancestors. He's concerned with those who have vanished, who are no longer amongst us, and he's very anxious that we remember them. And so he's an artist of time, of genealogy, of the dead cult of the ancestors. And so we have two artists here, a grand artist of space and a grand artist of time, for the contributions this week for Rome and Paris in our archaeology of contemporary art. So let's move right into this first work by him that I want to look at. This was an exhibition held at the Grand Palais in 2010 of his work, and it was entitled Persons. And what we see here, what we're looking at, is a pile of clothing. And the pile of clothing, by the way, connects him directly to arte povera. Here is an earlier work by Michelangelo Pistoletto, Venus of the Rags from 1967. So we see that Pistoletto, back in the 60s, was already doing this type of thing, creating piles of clothing. But when we glance back here at the Grand Palais with Boltanski, we've got a different environment, and the concerns, as has frequently been pointed out, are more eschatological, more about the piles of clothes, perhaps, of the Holocaust, in which there are piles of this, piles of gold teeth, maybe piles of the Nazis separating out all the belongings of the Jews into the various piles. So there is that is part of the semiotic, but that is not the only semiotic in this image. You'll note that in the far left-hand corner here, there is a red crane with there's a crane with a red claw that periodically dumps down and grabs a handful of clothes, lifts it up, and then drops it again. And the claw, according to Boltanski, is a reference to the hand of God at the Last Judgement, picking up the souls and sorting them out. Down on the floor here, we've got a series of aisles where clothing has been sorted, apparently the realms of the blessed who have been separated from the damned. If we look back, here is a better image where we can see the metal claw actually descending into the pile, grabbing the clothing. And then if we look back at the ultimate image ancestry of this, we can find it on one of the timpani from the Last Judgement at the Cathedral of Autun, where here we see the two hands of God down below in the bottom row here that look very much like that red claw in Boltanski's installation there, grabbing one of the souls of the damned and lifting them up and sorting them out. Here is Hans Memling's image of the Last Judgement from 1467, in which we can see clearly the sorting process here. The souls of the dead, those are coming, they're awakening. The dead will awaken at the end of time. and then they will be sorted out. The right hand of God lifts the souls on the left here, but it's God's right, lifts them up out of their graves, and they're ushered off through the gates of paradise into heaven, while the souls of the damned are separated and they are thrown into hell. So we've got this sorting process, and I think there's an aspect where this can be mapped onto the Holocaust, where we think of the images of the Nazis, the famous images that we've seen in film after film, in Schindler's List and other films like this, of the Nazis sorting the Jews at the camps out. The healthy ones are separated out from the sick ones. So there is that sorting process, that sorting semiotic that can be seen inside of Boltanski's work here. There is that aspect, and so there is the sense that what we're dealing with here is an artwork in Boltanski's work that is appropriate for the biopolitical age. Foucault was the first to name this age the biopolitical age, the age of in which large-scale populations are managed by various ominous means. One of those means might be the making of lists. It's a Gutenbergian sort of means. If we think of the Holocaust, we see the way in which the Jews were sorted on railroads, on iron rails, in lines, in accordance with the lists. It was all very alphabetic, very linear, very Gutenbergian. Whereas, so there's that aspect of persons of the exhibition here. Then there's the other aspect of, we think of the American attack on Hiroshima, in which an entire population is decimated. 100,000 people or something blinked out of existence all at once, with a kind of electronic instantaneity and simultaneity. So there's that aspect, and we think of the sort of clothes drifting down in Steven Spielberg's War of the Worlds after his tripod machines have scooped up people, sucked them up, and thrown their clothes back down. So there is a double semiotic. But either way, the ontological consequences, whether we think of the Holocaust or Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the ontological consequences of both events are the same. That is to say, we are now in the biopolitical age, as announced by Foucault and followed up by Giorgio Agamben in his book Homo Sacer, in which we are dealing with the management now of entire populations who find themselves falling through the cracks of history. Homo Sacer, in Agamben's work, the Homo Sacer is the one who can be killed with impunity precisely because he is not protected by a juridical order. He finds himself in the realm of Zoe, bare, naked life, pure zoological life. He is not protected by the order of bios, which is the order of biography and the inscription into a society with documentation and the juridical rights that protect the individual that come along with that. So these societies that find themselves falling through the cracks are falling under the rubric of Homo Sacer, where they can be killed with impunity because they have no rights. And so all the way down through the rest of the 20th century, from the Holocaust to Cambodia to Darfur, we have seen this biopolitical atrocity, this treatment of populations that find themselves falling through the cracks of history. So all of this is dealt with, I think, in Boltanski's work. He is an artist of the biopolitical age. And here, another one of the aspects of this exhibition is the archive. We see at the opposite end from the pile of clothes is a vast, grand archive, which is also an eschatological motif. It's a motif that relates to the underworld. The underworld is the realm of the keeping track of the names of the dead and their sins in archives. This goes way, way back in civilization. If we look at this page from the Egyptian Book of the Dead from about 1285, we see the soul of the dead person on the left here being led in by Anubis, who weighs the soul in this jar, which is the heart, against the feather of the goddess Mat. And then we see the god Tot on the right-hand side with his little archive, his little palette there, recording the name of the dead person, of the deceased. And so Tot is the god of archives, who records the names of the dead, just like Yama, the god of the dead in Eastern traditions. Here he is in his Japanese incarnation as Emma-O, whose hat is full of scrolls. Those scrolls contain the names of the souls of the dead and all of their deeds and their sins that they've committed and so forth. So the archive is one of the main things, one of the constitutive features of the work of Boltanski that recurs in his work all through his oeuvre, and is a reference to the keeping of the names of the dead in the realm of the dead. But it also, of course, has bureaucratic connotations. This doesn't completely exhaust its semiotic. No great work of art's semiotic can be completely exhausted by a mere hermeneutic, one hermeneutical interpretation. This is just my riff on these images. And the second work that I want to talk about in the remaining couple of minutes here is the work that he did early on in his career. So we go back to the beginning of his career in the late 80s when he really gets going. This is Children of Dijon, which is inscribed in a cathedral. He's got these photographs of essentially black and white photographs of dead children, and they are illuminated with tiny little electric bulbs. In this photo, I think you can see them better. And these are the souls of the dead, and it is the anonymous dead that he is concerned with here. We don't know who any of these individuals are. Boltanski is concerned with the anonymous dead of the biopolitical age. Groupings, populations are his subject matter, not single individuals. This is a post-metaphysical art. And here is Children of Dijon inscribed on the walls of an installation in a museum. So it's an installation, and it doesn't matter whether it takes place inside of a cathedral or inside of a museum. It's the installation that matters. And what we can see here is the sense that each one of these souls is glowing with its own internal luminosity. We remember Janis Kunelis' work that I wanted you to keep in mind, the Untitled of 84-87, in which he had those lanterns that were gone and had left burn scars on the steel canvas there, and had been a reference to carrying the light out to the graveyard at a cemetery in Athens. So too here I want to bring to your attention the Japanese Festival of the Dead, in which the souls of the dead are represented by little candles that are set on these boats called shoryobuni, and they're put on these boats and they are sent back to the other world as they go along this river. This takes place during July in Japan, but the lights represent the souls of the dead, which are self-luminous. Like the figures of our dreams, which also are self-luminous, the realm of the dead radiates its own internal light. And I think if we look back at Children of Dijon here, we can see that this is indeed the realm of the self-luminous dead. These are the souls of the dead. Here they've been inscribed by Boltanski on the walls of a cathedral, which once upon a time would have been saints, but now they are inscribed in the biopolitical age with the anonymous dead. And so we'll see as we go through Boltanski's work here that there is indeed a concern with restoring contemporaneity's relationship to the underworld, the afterlife, and the realm of those who are no longer with us, those who are vanished. This is very unique, I think, in contemporary art for an artist to have this kind of a concern with the realm of the dead. It's regarded, generally, that type of thinking is regarded as metaphysically, as a holdover from the metaphysical age. It is not. It is absolutely essential for a culture to have a relationship to the dead. And Boltanski is trying as a contemporary artist, I think, to restore that relationship, just as Kunelis, as we've seen, was trying to restore our relationship to place and space.